We are live. Thomas.
Hello. All right. So first of all, thank you very much. Thank you very much for doing this. So myself and a guy out of Alaska, of all places, Brandon, and my oldest kid, Jason, have been working hard on this expansion now for 5 months. Wow. Anyway, 5 months putting together an expansion for a Japanese version of Vaesen. If I pronounced that close enough to being right, hopefully, anyway.
It's not bad.
I quite
it's
like the idea of a Vaesen version there.
It's the Australian accent. It's a natural impediment to saying other countries' names correctly. And what we are now in the process of doing is testing out all of the things we've done. So we've been doing some actual play of one of the yokai that's in the game and getting people to actually play the characters. So spoiler alert, there's a spider involved in the actual play. I won't say which explicit yokai it is, but there's really only 2 that matter, so you should be able to work it out. And what we're going to be doing tonight is just going through the life path generation that we've created. So a couple of framing comments. So the life path generation that we came up with is really focused on the Meiji period. So it's explicitly meant to capture the fact that your characters start pre-Meiji, so they start in the Tokugawa shogunate or Tokugawa bakufu, and then the big change happens.
Can I just, for those of us who aren't as familiar with Japanese culture as you and other viewers might be, can you just explain what that is for us?
Yeah, so very briefly. Okay, so in 1852, the black ships arrive, which is sent by the US. They disrupt what has been 250 odd years of rule by the shogun, who is the person who works on behalf of the emperor to run the country, not the emperor, but on behalf of. It's really important variation. A whole bunch of people, particularly out of 2 major provinces, say, you don't know what you're doing. We don't think this is going to work. And so they boost the emperor, and the emperor begins to take control of the country. There's a series of wars that are fought, actually quite significant civil wars in Japan between shogunate forces and Meiji forces. And Meiji is the name of the emperor who takes the throne. So it's called the Meiji period because in Japan, you name the period after the emperor of the day. So when they ascend, it's year 1 of their reign, and their reign lasts for as long as they're alive. Or in the case of very recent history, until they abdicate. So, so the Tokugawa lose, and the start of the Meiji period, which is around about 1868, 1869, is explicitly when that happens. The thing about Japan is in 50 years, they go from what is fundamentally a feudal society to a country that defeats a first world power industrial nation in open warfare. And it's an absolute victory. They destroy the Russian fleets, in both Russian fleets, and they take Port Arthur and defeat the Russian army in the field. So it's not a sort of resistance fight. It's a straight up battle between 2 major powers, and Japan becomes the first major power not to be of Western origin. And that happens in 1905. So this is a game that's sort of taking the idea of Vaesen, which is obviously all about that industrial change, and then saying, if you think Europe was rapidly changing, then imagine what it was like in Japan. Because you've got people, and as a matter of fact, the guy who is the admiral of the fleet that defeats the Russians in 1905 started his career as a samurai defending the port against the black ships that rock up. And he's firing, black powder cannons at the Americans in, sort of 1858, I think it is, or thereabouts. And by 1905, he's the admiral in charge of a major power fleet sailing into conflict and winning a battle. So that's exactly what the experience of these people is. That's within 1 generation he experiences all of that. So this game and these life path generators are meant to capture that transformation.
Cool. Excellent.
And that defeat of the Russians prompts the Russian Revolution in the long run.
It does. It provokes the first revolutions and then the inevitable fall of the Tsar. Poor old Tsar Nicholas. Anyway, enough about Tsar Nicholas, even though he's also another one of my favorites. So what we're going to do is just roll through the table. Now, you've all got the tables. I sent them out to you like a week ago. It's cool. I didn't expect anyone to read them, but I know a number of you have. So what I was planning to do was literally just get everyone to roll through each step at the same time, if that's okay, and just see how it turns out. So the first thing you do is you work out what caste you come from, because in Tokugawa Shogunate, everything is about caste, because you belong to a caste and that is who you are and where you stay for your entire life until the Meiji Restoration flips the narrative. So if you go to it should be page 37. I can share the screen, but it's probably, actually, we probably do want to share the screen for people following along, don't we?
That would be a good idea.
Okay, not that I imagine anyone
if you
is.
just press the share button, a screen will appear, and then I'll put that on.
Okay. Yep, and I want to show an application window. That one there. Can you see? Is that working?
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Sweet as. All right. It's quite nice.
So, and you can, if you manipulate that in your screen, obviously you can magnify it and stuff like that.
Standard stuff.
But that's page 37.
I think in my book it's page 50 in my
version. I've got an old. I've just realised my paper version is actually about 2 versions out of date, so I'm going to stop using it. Just missing a whole stack of pages in the middle. But luckily, we've got the PDF, which is up to date. So we go to page 52, it should be, and you should be able to see a caste table.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a straight up D66 roll, and you just roll on the D66.
And I am an artisan. 32.
I am a merchant.
I'm a Boshi.
45, yeah. That would mean a farmer.
Yeah.
Okay. So I make a note of that, I guess.
And
Yes.
And I'm an Etta.
I mean, sorry, I shouldn't be so rude.
Yes.
You perform a vital role.
Doesn't that mean you have to leave this stream and do one on your own? Because we're not going to associate with you now.
No one wants
I
to
will
hang
not
with
be
you.
allowed to talk.
Only when spoken to.
Right, that's exactly right. So what you should note about it for the moment is just your starting resources, which is the standard resources that are now. There's a new stat. A new value that we've added to the game to represent Japanese culture at the time, which is the idea of status, which is a little bit more granular than resources. So in Vaesen, there's a bit of a focus on resources as sort of almost being the measure of a person's cultural, preeminence. However, that's not at all the way it works in traditional Japan society, right? So merchants are wealthy, but they're low caste. And actually, by this point in time, most samurai are dirt poor because the stipend system has fallen apart. They're not making very much money from the taxation. However, they're high status and they can chop off a merchant's head at whim and not be charged for it. So status and resources don't actually connect. Obviously, if you're a member of the Royal Court, it's 2 thumbs up because you went on both lotteries. But just take particular attention of your status. And your resources. And then what we're going to do is for every person, we're going to roll once on the sort of next section of the table, which treats with what you actually were in any one of those.
Okay, yeah.
Now,
so
I
just recorded that because we've got standard Vaesen character sheets. I've just done 2/2.
Yeah, just put it in notes or wherever you want to put it. Yep. I am wondering whether I'm going to write an additional character sheet. That might happen. I might be that desirous of it. So we have no one from the royal courts, which means there's no one who belongs to a daimyo's sort of court or Tokugawa courts or the imperial courts. So that's out. The next thing we had was one person, however, rolled Boshi.
Yeah, that was me.
Bushi, depending on how you pronounce it. And as Nicholas, as you pointed out, there's been an ongoing debate between me and Brandon about the naming and spelling of that. So we'll have to work through that. Right. So basically, you're samurai. I'll do the shortcut version. There's a lot of words there, but the shortcut version is you're samurai. You get paid in a stipend. the stipend's not really enough to make ends meet because it was defined almost 200 years ago and there's been inflation. So you're struggling to survive, but you have to have a beautiful house and you have to do all the right things. So you're dirt poor. And of course, the most important thing of all, you get to wear the daisho. So the big little, the katana and the wakizashi, you are the only people who are allowed to wear both. Just as a small side note and odd fact, doctors were allowed to carry one of the swords, but only as an empty handle. They couldn't have a blade on it. Don't know why. Just one of those things. Quite cute. Okay, so it's a single D6 roll to see what particular type of boshi you were.
Doshin, police.
Right. So basically, you worked for a yoriki, which is like the patrol leader who ran around and, sort of managed it. So you worked in the town and you were the keeper of the peace.
Excellent. Sheriff.
Pretty much. Actually, more correctly, your father was Doshin. So I should have said this. So these life tables are about your family, not about you, because you're assumed to be a youngish child to teenager during this period. So, so you grew up in a Doshin household. So your stats are as written. So physique 4, precision 4, logic 3, and empathy 4. You know how to use swords, obviously. So you've got close combat 1. You were a bit educated. You paid some attention to art, and obviously you know people. So your observation is 1. Importantly, as often happens for the samurai, your resources actually goes down by 1 because unless you're top of the list of samurai, you're actually coming out generally poor.
Okay, well done.
Okay, so farmer, a farmer, roll a single D6.
1d6 coming up.
Yeah.
And it's a 6.
Hey, you're going to be wealthier than hell. Okay, so you are a stable master. So you owned horses. Your family raised horses for the military and sold horses to samurai. So you accumulated quite significant amounts of wealth. And I don't know if people understand this, but in Japanese society, the hierarchy of status went basically went imperial emperor, warriors and the people who were there to defend the realm, and then farmers, because in Japanese society, the preeminence was the ability to feed the people. So as a farmer, you were high status, not as high as samurai, but higher than artisans, merchants, and other people. So just be aware of that. So as a horse, a rancher, you had physique 5, precision 4, logic 2, and empathy 4. And you have agility 1, force 2, observation 1, and +3 to resources because you were quite wealthy.
Oh, yeah. It brings my resources up to 5.
Yep.
Whoa.
So farmers.
Really impressive.
So you were very wealthy. Now, I'm not going to read out all the text because it would take too long. But it is worth reading the text for your character because what we found in the actual play where everyone made it up is it gave a real connection of their characters. So I'll just give an example. The doctor in the game is actually an Eta who got educated but was an Eta because they were connected to a farming family that lost all their wealth. So they ended up poor and then they got educated. So they've got a secret relationship with basically Yakuza clans that they're running because they've been attached to the criminal underworld because their sisters became prostitutes, and that's how they got their start in medicine, was treating them. So anyway, it just works really well. And they were the one that made the incredible decision today that solved the mystery, but not in any way that I was expecting. Okay, so next we have the artisan. So
me, and I'm
go for it, Matt.
And I get 5.
So you are at 5. Oh, gunsmith. Oh, cool.
Oh,
we've not had one of
cool.
these before. So basically, you learnt how to make gunpowder weapons, older gunpowder weapons. Your family was taught by the Portuguese, so you know how to make like muskets. So your family were musket makers, and really important and really controlled. So the samurai did not let you wander around talking to other people because actually what you were producing was a weapon that could topple empires. as far as Japanese society was concerned. So you were quite restrained. However, secretly, because of course it couldn't have been done publicly, you learnt how to fire your guns. So you get physique 4, precision 5.
Yeah.
Logic 4 and empathy 2. But you get range combat 2.
Cool.
And investigation 1, learning 1, and resources +1, because gunsmiths get paid well.
I can live with that.
Yeah. Okay. And now we have the merchant.
Yep,
Did someone roll a merchant? Yep.
Yep,
Awesome.
I did. Yep. Okay, that's 5.
Okay, so just to reiterate, merchants were considered the lowest of the low, just above ETA, and ETA were considered lowest of the low because of the job they did. Merchants were considered lowest of the low because they did nothing productive. So there was a whole thing about the fact that you were basically parasites, feeding off others, not adding anything, not contributing to the society's good in any way. So you're generally, shunned. But of course, usually quite wealthy. So what did you roll, sorry?
5.
A 5.
Firearms merchant.
That's you're the competitor to the gunsmith because, of course, what you did was buy firearms from the Dutch and the French. Because from the 1850s
Stinking
onwards,
capitalist.
I'm not buying them from Matthew then and selling them to
No.
Right.
It was much. You
I
were
make
basically
fine
creating.
weapons. You get cheap imports in.
So yeah,
That's
so
right.
Matthew, you work yourself to the bone to death, while I sit back and just let the money roll in as I like live off the sweat of everybody else. That sounds fine by me.
Yeah, because from the sort of mid to late 1850s onwards, the Tokugawa Empire, the Tokugawa shogunate, and the Chosun and Satsuma families, who are the two families who go to war with them, all start buying from the French, right? Firearms. So you've basically been operating out of one of the treaty ports, one of the trade ports, and buying these new weapons and selling them on. So you get physique 3, precision 4, logic 4, and empathy 4.
Yeah.
You're not as close to the firearms as the gunsmith, so you get range combat 1.
Yep.
Investigation 1, learning 1, observation 1, and you get 2 resources.
That brings me up to 6 in resources.
Yeah. So you were doing very well.
Excellent.
It also means, and I've written this into the description, you were closer to the Europeans than almost anyone else in the society at this point, which means you were pretty sus on the Europeans. You did not think they were there for Japan's good.
Right. Okay,
perhaps,
cool.
Perhaps the sense of the truth. Okay, now for my personal favourite table, the Untouchables, who I love. So I think who was the Untouchable?
Yeah, it was me.
Someone was ETA.
And I got I got a 6, a tanner.
You're a tanner, so you basically made leather goods. I just will say #sad that no one has yet rolled the torturer because I'm truly in love with the torturer. Okay. But yeah, your family ran a tannery. So you went out, collected dead animals, skinned them, bought the skins back and treated the skins to make leather goods. Really smelly business, and really not okay in Japanese society. You were treating with dead things all the time. You were touching dead animals, as not liked. So you get physique 4, precision 5, logic 3, and empathy 3. And you get force 1, range combat 2, vigilance 1, and you get 1 additional resource because you were actually selling stuff. And as an ETA, I think your resources is 1. So that brings you all the way up to the heady heights of 2. Okay, so by this point, what's happened in the Life Path Generator is you've all rolled the sort of what your family was doing during the Tokugawa shogunate period. And then you get to that sort of mid to late 1860s period where the Chosun and the Satsuma families go to war with the Tokugawa Bakufu and win. And by 1868 to 1869, you see the transition of power. The Tokugawa shogunate, faced with the impossibility of continuing a war against the person who he claims to represent, surrenders and hands over authority to the emperor. The emperor is declared the official ruler of the country. So the good news is things change. One of the first things that happens is the emperor says, not a big fan of castes, think they're horrible. They don't help people. We'll get rid of them. That's old thinking. Good news also, just to reassure you, that most of Japan doesn't buy into that immediately, so that takes a while to flow through. And arguably, even today, people who were eta during the Tokugawa shogunate have special employment programs because there's still systemic intolerance of people from those backgrounds in the society today. Okay, so what we now do is we roll to see how you came out. And these tables are deliberately weighted to reflect the different experiences of the different castes, because actually the castes as a whole had quite different experiences through this period. So what we do is we roll a single d6, and we'll start with the Boshi again. And just to make it clear, the Boshi, the dice are loaded against you. So
I'm used to that. So it's
roll
a 2.
a d6. Yep.
2.
So negative outcome. Your daimyo has had his titles taken from him, and your family now finds itself unemployed. Without income or the ability to collect rice from the farmer caste, your family is forced to downsize and sell large portions of their estate. Your parents are afraid of being unable to provide for you with a future. You take -2 to resources.
Can I go negative? 0.
It's
0.
It's 1. It's 1. And I'm actually, so just open admission, we're still playtesting through all this, right? And I think I've been overly negative on the resources table for samurai, because I haven't yet had a samurai come out with a positive outcome. So I may need to reflect that. I may have let my historical knowledge get in the way of what's playable.
What's fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you take -2 to resources, so just drop it to 1. You take -1 to status, though, because your family falls in status as well.
Right.
And you will also be taking a -1 to the profession roll when we roll for what profession you get, because basically you're not wealthy, so you don't get some of the choices that you might otherwise have gotten.
Cool.
Okay, so then it's the farmer and fisher folk.
So I roll my d6 and I get a 2.
You also got a negative outcome.
Oh no! Did I lose my stable or something?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You were the rich one.
Stable master, yes.
Your family was clearly connected to the wrong side of the war that just went down. The transition of power is not good for your family income. You've had to overcome a lot over the years to get by and survive. Starvation is a constant threat before each winter. So you take you also take -2 to resources, -1 to status, and -1 to professional roles.
Oh yeah.
However, you started off way wealthier than the samurai, so I think your resources will now be 3 off the top of my head.
Down to 3 now, yes. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's barely able to make ends meet. And the samurai's like, what? Okay, now for the artisan.
Right, roll my dice. 1. Oh no!
Negative outcome.
Everything was going to go well for me, but not anymore. Bloody alien dice.
Oh, look, no, you're right. They have a tendency towards the obtuse, right? Okay, yeah, well, a fire started during one of the battles between the Tokugawa and the Imperial forces, severely damaged your family's home and business. Your parents are working day and night to be able to regain what they've lost. I mean, your big problem is your family was making muskets, and no one's buying muskets anymore. No one cares. So you have taken a hit.
Sure, people exploded our gunpowder. The bloody Meiji exploded our gunpowder thing to stop the Tokugawas getting rearmed.
That's right.
Bastards.
So now you suffer the same effect. So -2 to status, -1 to status, -2 to resources, -1 to the professional role. Let's see if the gun selling merchant can pull it out of the bag.
And I roll a 3.
Hey, Like I said, the tables are weighted.
Okay,
So-
that's positive then.
So
All right.
that's a positive outcome for you, because merchants do well out of the shift, unsurprisingly, perhaps, because you had
I'm
lots. You
sitting
had a
here
lot more
counting
money.
my money. Yeah,
That's
okay.
exactly right. Yep. And selling guns, it turns out, to armies is profitable in the middle of a war.
Who knew, eh?
Who knew?
Yeah, unless the other side blow up your gunnery.
That's right. Bastards. So you get +2 to resources, +1 to status, and +1 to your professional role.
Okay, +1 there. So that takes
which
me
will-
up to two status and 8 resources.
Whoa!
Yep, wealthier than Sin. And now
Okay,
for the ETA, who also do reasonably well. Well, it can't go. It's hard to go worse.
It was hard to go worse as an artisan, but I
Yeah.
managed it.
Solo.
Yeah. That was a 5, so it's a beneficial.
Yes, the caste system is gone, and your family has taken the utmost advantage of this new world order. Your parents have managed to take a new position of employment and invest to provide you with the resources to help you succeed in life. You also get +2 to resources, +1 to status, meaning you've crawled out of ETA status, and +1 to your professional role when we roll on that. Okay, so what's next? So that represents that sort of transition period and all the mess of the civil wars and the changing of the guard and the authorities that move. Just as a small side note, the Satsuma actually end up rebelling against the emperor 10 years after having helped him win. So, like things are moving pretty quickly during this period of history. But yeah, so that's how you come out. And so now what we do is we roll to see what profession you have based on your caste. So caste derives what professions were available to your family coming out of the disaster. So first of all, we can roll for the Boshi
Okay.
and apply a -1 to your dice rolls, just a single D6.
Single D6. So I rolled a 4, that makes a 3.
So you train to be a doctor.
Oh, interesting.
So now there's 2 options for doctor. Obviously, you can be a practitioner of traditional medicine, or you can practice the newfangled European art. There's no mechanical difference in those choices. It's just a stylistic choice about how you want to play the character.
Traditional, definitely.
Awesome. Of course, you're samurai. You wouldn't possibly
Indeed.
lower yourself to, particularly since you were on the losing side. If you were on the winning side, you might have made a different choice, but
Yeah.
losing side, it's all about holding on tradition. Okay, so farmers.
That's a 3.
Is that including the
No,
-1?
-1. Okay, that's 2 then. Yes.
So you get to be an entertainer, which is one of the new archetypes that we've come up with. So basically a performer. So you could be a you could be a no performer or a kabuki performer. You could just be someone who works in one of the red light district. There's actually an option to be a geisha. So any one of those things, male or female, either way. But yeah, so you've come back as you've fallen on hard times and had to become an entertainer, which is not a high status position, by the way. Okay, so artisan.
I will roll 6 down to 5.
Which 5? You decide to take up a job in the police
Oh!
because you hate samurai. So you're going to go around and jam it up them. And clearly your knowledge of firearms has stood you in good stead.
Cool. So that's table
F in the
of
core rules.
I'll get the core
Yeah,
rules.
so I should probably make this comment now. So this is deliberately designed to be an extension of the core rules. And I've been really careful to not duplicate anything in the expansion that is documented in the core rules. Because I think, first of all, it's a breach of IP, which is not acceptable. But actually, it's also not the point, right? So the point is to expand, not to replicate. So if you use the expansion, you definitely need the core rules because you can't play without it. So I've written it in that way.
Just as an
quite
aside,
deliberately.
I just got my book off the shelf, and every time I take it off the shelf, I just remember how lovely it is. It's such a good game. It's such a good book. Yeah.
It's so
I was
beautiful.
just-
I've got it open beside me so that I could just when we get to exactly this issue of rolling on the
Got it.
tables and the thing. It's so good.
I had exactly the same thought just now as I took it
Yeah.
off.
It's
Yeah.
just so lovely.
Yeah, I got the Swedish version, I guess. Yeah.
Oh,
I actually bought I
you
bought the
got-
limited edition.
Oh,
Ah,
that's fun.
nice.
And the
You can buy this in Swedish still, I believe, from the free
oh,
website.
that's
Cool.
That's
The
just-
Swedish one.
that's just rubbing it in, man.
Well, it's got to have
Hell.
something positive. He is an ETA after all. you know.
That's right.
yeah. Shit, I'm never going to hear the end of this.
That's right. And you literally never will. I mean, you literally never will. All right, so I think we're up to the merchant. Is that right? Yes, and the merchant got a
Yep.
positive outcome, so you get +1 on the dice roll.
D6 plus 1. I roll 3 makes 4,
You're a doctor as well.
which makes me a doctor too. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
We could roll again if you want to. Actually, why don't we roll again and just?
Yeah, I think that
one.
might be
Just
wise
pick
because the
something
last
different.
time Dave tried to cure people in Vaesen, he shot them and made a gun merchant become
It's-
doctor.
It did. Hang on. It did work though. I have to
It
point
did
out.
work. Yeah.
I saved
We don't want to
Millie's
encourage
life.
that behaviour though.
Okay, I'll roll again. Let's see. This time I got 5 in total. Then. No, shall I do something different?
Yeah, just pick something. Just pick something.
Yeah. Okay. I'll be a.
Oh. Can I give you one because we're just
You can
doing
suggest. Yeah, suggest one.
it? So the Miko is the Shrine Priestess, which is kind of fun, and it's very much in the vein of the game.
I guess on the list here though, Miko isn't an option for merchant.
Oh no, you're a merchant. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong list.
So I was a merchant. What's the best thing? Can I take academic then?
Yeah, why
I
not?
think I'm wanting to try and increase my status, and I think that being an academic might do that.
Sure.
Yeah, cool.
Yep. So you're going to be a academic. Okay, cool. We've not had one of those before, so that's cool. And then untouchable, who have a very, very straight table, except that's right, they can roll officer. Yeah. So D6 plus 1.
A 6, so that's 1. I'm an officer.
You're an officer. Okay, so
Yeah.
one of those little things that we put into the game. So because it's actually historically correct, you can be a Western style military officer / soldier, or you can actually be a full-on samurai because they both coexist at the same time.
Mhm.
So we've got officers and boshi, and you're an officer, definitely not boshi.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be odd.
It would be very odd. Okay, so now unfortunately we have to I don't have the tables in the in this PDF. Obviously, I could open the PDF for Vaesen.
I've got the Vaesen PDF open.
Where it says extension, Thomas. Where does that table live? Is that a fresh one that you've created?
It's fresh ones that I've created, so they're listed below. So if you follow on straight after that table, you'll see that there's life event tables for Miko, Boshi, Priest, because we completely redid the Priest because obviously Christian priest and Shinto priest / Buddhist monk didn't really connect. But there's an extension to the academic because there's a very particular thing that academics were doing during the period. So you roll on this table and most of the references take you back to the core rules, but there is an option to get something that was very particular to Japan at the time.
Right, okay.
And there's Entertainer, who of course you have rolled, and someone's rolled, and they are quite specific as well. So it works exactly like it does in the Vaesen Life Path Generator with one very minor difference, which we'll cover when we get to the end. So you basically start off as young. You've got your stats. You roll once on the life path table, on the life event table, sorry. If you want to roll again, you have to take 1 point off a stat, and then you can roll again. And you can do that to a maximum of 3 times. So young, middle-aged, and old. Stats go down by 1 when you go to middle-aged, and then again when you go to old, but you get 3 rolls on the table, so you get more skills. And a really important side note, we have deliberately reduced the number of skills that are presented in here in comparison to the ones that are presented in Vaesen, because we wanted the great change to be, because people make lots of different choices through this sudden and radical change. So we're giving people 4 skill points to spend at the end as opposed to 2 that are called out in the core rules, to allow people to sort of make more choices and reflect a more diverse background. So on that note...
So I'm looking at the table in the core book for policemen, and that's going to give me 2 level or 1 skill level in 2 skills. That's different in the
No, because I've done 2 sets of tables, it gets a bit confusing. In the upbringing tables, we reduce the number of skills you got by 2. And gotcha. So you get to
come out of this with the same number of skills.
Yeah, and the reason for that is simply mechanical. There was no easy way to account for people choosing multiple rolls of the life event table, so we took the skill points off the 1 set of tables you only roll on once, because that was much more mechanically easy. Yeah. So what we're going to do is just get everyone to roll, and what I think might be the best way to do that, well, I guess is probably just to go through the tables as written. So the first one we encounter was the officer, actually, in the core rules.
Right. Right.
So just to flip it around. So if you roll a d6, I've got the officer table obviously in front of me, and you probably do too now, since you've got the core rules.
Yep, I got a 4, rescued. In serious trouble, badly injured, left to die, imprisoned. Yeah. Someone rescued me. Yeah.
Yep, so you get agility 1 and stealth 1, and you get a bayonet.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just conscious of time, so we might just keep it to 1, if that's okay, rather than cycle through it. Or you can do it while we're doing everyone else. It's completely up to you. That's probably a better way to handle that. So then there was a police. There was police.
That was me.
So straight up D6.
And I get a 5, a sweetheart. I met someone who made me happy, and the love was reciprocated. Love gave my life meaning, and the future looked sparkling bright. Perhaps we are still together, or perhaps we went our separate ways when the passion faded. However, I get learning 1, inspiration 1, and a musical instrument.
No, that's so lovely. And then we have the academic is the next one. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually roll on the little extension table, because if you roll a 2, you get a different outcome.
Yeah, okay. So I roll a 6.
So you don't get a different outcome. So influential work.
Yeah, so I did work that proved to be groundbreaking in your field. Colleagues lined up to work with you, and you received funding and invitations beyond your wildest dreams, which is, I guess, exactly what I was hoping for in my academic career. So I get learning 1, inspiration 1, and a book collection.
Cool. And then there was a doctor. So we just roll on the doctor table.
Yeah. So that's the core rule doctor table, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. 1, addiction.
Yeah, the doctor in the actual play got addiction as well, which worked really well for their Yakuza connection. So it was all one seamless, horrible life. Yep. So yes, you've got manipulation 1, observation 1, and chemical equipment. And then I think we're up to the entertainer.
Yep, I'm making my roll. And it's a
Awesome.
3. That would be, I have a rival, I think, then.
Yep. So you got into a conflict with a professional rival. You can barely remember how it all started, but the conflict kept growing until it took over your life. Perhaps you got over it. Perhaps you became friends. Perhaps you made an enemy for life. You get inspiration 1, vigilance 1, and a kniffen or a knife as your thing. Okay, right. So that's that's most of it. And then what we do very quickly, and I'll just go back to the actual table that has the specific steps. Oh no, not quite far enough.
Thomas, just before we do that, I wanted to take a second life path event. Just if it's worth calling out. So I've just rolled and I rolled a 2.
Which was the academic one.
Which is, so that's the foreign research trip. So that I just thought it might be worth mentioning, seeing it's in your new part of your new rules.
So Japan, one of the things Japan does as soon as it decides it doesn't want to be conquered by the rest of the world and it wants to be a major power and stand on its own 2 feet, is it sends all these academic research missions out into the world to research particular topics. So, for instance, the Japanese parliamentary system is a derivation of a series of academic research trips that went to China, France, Britain, and the US to look at how different political systems are working to decide what they would adopt. And they basically adopted the German model. Right. As their preferred model because it respected the authority of the throne in particular, and it was limited democracy, which is what they were looking for. It's also why there's a picture of a whole bunch of Japanese guys in, I think it's Denver, in full, Japanese garb that we talked about many moons ago on your game. That's actually a research trip. They're actually out there trying to understand how government works, right? So that's why there's this mixture of clothing and style. So yes, so you're an academic. So you get learning 2, and you get a lantern, a chochin.
Okay. I was going to ask what that was.
Yeah, there is an equipment table, and they do have descriptions of all of the equipment.
Cool, brilliant, thank you.
Mostly because one of you, I can't remember which one of the two of you it was, but one of you mentioned it, so I went and got Jason to just put descriptions in against all of it, so that it was covered. Because it had indeed not been done brighter then.
And I've taken a point off. Sorry, just to finish. And I've taken a point off precision as well for that. So cool. Sorry.
Cool.
Sorry. Can I ask? I rolled another life event and I got the same thing.
So I tend to make.
Do I get another rival now, or
no? I just make it re-roll, right? Because it's a bit boring.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, you can if you want to double down.
Another rival, and I get 2 knives, I guess.
Yeah. It's more fun to roll. I think I re-roll. Yeah. Okay, so roll again, and we'll see what you get.
Yeah, now I got the 6, and that means I get. I increased my stat or got up in life, I guess.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm still contemplating as part of the thing is how to handle the fact that your status should go up with profession. So because it should. What I actually think I'm going to do, just saying it out loud, is I'm probably going to make the archetype minimum status like the floor of a particular profession. So no matter what your status was, if you're that profession, your status will go up at a minimum to that. Okay. So you can't be a status 1 person who's also a doctor, to be an explicit example, because doctors are higher status than that. So as long as you don't tell anyone about your background, and that creates a whole opportunity for you to role play not telling anyone about your background, then your status will be higher. Of course, the moment you tell everyone that you were descended from Edda and you hang out with criminal gangs, it'll collapse like a stone. As the actual play doctor is about to find out, because they basically told everyone that was the case. Okay, so that's how it works. Okay, cool. So I'd be keen on feedback on that idea, because I think that's probably how I'll handle it, because I don't want to have dice moving it all the time, because it gets messy and noisy. And also it's really hard to account for the mathematics of it and make sure it's balanced. I mean, it's hard enough as it is. Okay, so
I'm a policeman, but I'm also status 1. What would the policeman's floor be?
It will be we're going to go to the archetypes in a minute. So when we go there, allow me to answer that question, because I think the next step.
That's fine. I was just looking for the archetypes.
So it'll go there in a second. Yep. So we've done the physique. Yep. And then you have. We go and look at the archetype, and then you can move a stat point around so that you can butt up to a maximum of 5, and you can spend 4 extra skill points. However, only your profession skill can be at 3, and your profession skill is defined in your archetype. So you can only have other skills at 2, and you can have your profession skill at 3, which is your sort of dividing line. So we'll just go to the archetypes, which, if I do say so myself, are very pretty, if nothing else.
So my profession skill is already at 4.
So it has to come down.
Right. Okay.
So when you have a profession, it's in the it's actually described in the table I just skipped over. But when you've reached a maximum of 3, you can put that point wherever you want.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
As long as it adheres to the rules I just described about 2. So basically, you farm it out.
So I can only any other skill can only be at 1. Is that right?
Any other skill can only be at 2.
2, right?
So
okay.
your profession skill can be at 3, and that's learning in the case of the academic.
Yeah.
But other skills can only be at 2. So,
cool.
So the floor for an academic for status is 4. So if your status is below 4, it would raise to 4 under that circumstance.
So that means my status goes up automatically to 4, does it then?
Yeah, and I'm thinking of I'm still playing it out in my head about how to work it out, because it is possible to be a doctor with rubbish status, like it is.
Yeah.
But it's pretty unusual, and I think it represents better how people took on personas. Like they changed, right? And they didn't talk about their past anymore, because why would you, right? You just pretended to fit in, and most people do that. So I think that's what I'm heading towards. Right. So the academic, you've got profession, like what you actually did. You've got your motivation, you've got your trauma, dark secret, relationships for you to define, and then you have your equipment down the bottom here. So what you do, if we're doing it completely randomly, and for now, my suggestion is we just trial that, although you can override any of them that you don't like, is it's just D3 time. So you roll a D3 under profession, D3 under motivation, trauma, dark secret, so forth and so on.
So what is Dutch learning for my information? Because that's just what I rolled.
It's basically foreign learning. So basically, it was called Dutch learning because Dutch were the only people who they were allowed to sort of talk to, as a general statement. So you've been so being a teacher of Dutch learning is to be a teacher of foreign things, and that makes complete sense for your character, because you went and did a foreign research trip, right? So you've come back and you teach that sort of thing.
Okay, my motivation is to become a famous politician.
Yep, there's a lot of that. Yeah, politics in Japan, particularly in the second half of the Meiji period, is particularly violent. It's quite notably violent.
My trauma is I'm visited every night by a Yuri.
That's a typo that I think we've now fixed finally. So that means you're actually visited by Yuri. So that's a ghost. So basically, a ghost comes to your sleep. It comes to you every night in your sleep.
Okay, and it's up to me to decide what that ghost is and all the rest of it, I guess.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of them that are going to appear in the Yokai and Yuri section at the back, the I Hengyoke section in the middle. So you'll have a list to choose from. The most common one is, what's its name? A grudge spirit. Oh, God, I should be able to remember its name, but I can't for the life of me right now. Right. But they're the ones who were made famous by The Ring, the movie. But they're also very much about, a lot of spirits in Japanese. A lot of ghosts are coming back for revenge, or because they've been, dishonored in some way. So it's that sort of thing.
Right.
And your dark secret?
I'm addicted to Chinese opium, which I think I obviously tried when I was traveling through China on my way to the west.
Oh well, the west
or on the way back.
Yes.
Now, just to mention it, the talents that you've got are all in the core book. So the academic we didn't create any new talents for the academic. Right. It wasn't necessary. Okay. So those talent you can choose bookworm, erudite, or knowledge is reassuring from the core rules. It's exactly as written. Cool. And then I think you get, I'll just double check that I get this right before I say it. I think you get one piece of equipment. Choose an extra item. Yep, you do. Yep. So you get one piece of equipment on top of the two you already got. So you've already got a book collection, so probably don't want one of those.
I'll take writing utensils then, I think, for that.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay. So we don't have any Boshi. We don't have any criminals. I should mention, by the way, we got rid of the vagabond and replaced them with criminal.
Right.
So we have servants, and we have criminals, and we don't have vagabonds, and that was quite a deliberate decision.
Sorry, Thomas, can I just ask one last question on my bit? So my status was 2 through the life path. It's been increased to 4 in line with the archetype. If you go through the life path, should it stay as 2?
If you go through the life path, should it stay as 2? As in, should 2 really be the answer to the question that you get from the life path generator?
Either that or if you are generating a character in the life path, then you risk not coming out as the archetype, I guess, don't you? So I'm a wealthy academic who's doing well, but my drive is to become accepted as a higher status. Yeah. Just a question in terms of the way this works, because
currently that's a new rule, right? Because currently that's what you're stuck with. You're stuck with the status out of the life path generator. My concern is that's generating very low status, professionals. I'm not sure that makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess my input is what's the point of creating my status in the life path generator if we're just going to make it 4 anyway? So maybe the life path generator wants to add a bit more status to an academic as part of it.
Yeah, well, I think that's what Thomas was saying. Is does he make the if you're lower than the academic status, does he have an extra rule that says and then you go up to the lowest rank of academic?
Yeah, but then as I said, the point then what's the point of having it in the life path then if we just change it to the standard? So I guess my point is maybe the life path should end up with a status of maybe 3 to 5 for an academic.
Yeah, the problem with that though is you're starting with a cast of status, right? So there's a lot of variables in status that are being deployed. So actually getting it to land on exactly 3 to 5 for an academic is actually really difficult.
Quite hard.
What I'm really tempted to do, and I'm just trying to avoid writing lots of additional rules, but it's actually the obvious answer to the question, is you actually have your real status and the status you pretend to have.
Yeah.
And as long as no one twigs, like you don't give anything away, it's really tempting because it's a massive role-playing thing, right?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
You're going to be invested in maintaining the appearance of the status to which you are assumed to have. And so you're going to be hiding your background, you're going to be hiding everything about yourself, even from your closest friends or your compatriots in the society, because the moment it leaks, it's leaked. And a great example is you want to be a famous politician. Well, you're not going to be a famous politician if you've got status 2. That's just not going to happen, right?
If so you're now invested. I'm doomed. Yeah,
you're doomed, right? Because status matters. And I've tried to make that really clear in the game. So actually, what the heck? I'm going to do it. I'm probably going to roll that.
I like that very much, Thomas. I think that works really nicely.
Yeah, and it would work for mine as well when we come to me.
Yeah, because then it gives you a reason. Yeah, it's sort of how I've been doing the Doctor so far. So I'm probably going to make it mechanically true. Okay, so we're through criminal, policeman, doctor.
Yeah.
So
you've
got
policeman yet? Sorry.
No, we get to police after doctor.
Okay.
So surgeon. You've chosen traditional practitioner. So
traditional practitioner. Yeah, I've already rolled most of the stuff now.
Oh, great. Okay. What was the one I'm really keen to know is what was your trauma?
My trauma is I'm haunted by an Onryo.
Yeah, so that's a grudge spirit. That's what I was trying to remember before. Okay, so so basically a ghost that wants, to punish you reappears every night.
And dark secret, I'm involved in illicit affairs that might go together with that.
Nice. Yeah, someone's killed themselves as a result of one of your illicit affairs and has now come back haunting you as a result.
Okay. And what else have I got? Emergency medicine as talent I picked. Quick question, though. Resources. On there it says resources. What does it say? 4 to 5, I think.
4 to 6.
It's very small on my screen. And I had previously got to the bottom to 1. So which one counts?
Definitely 1. Yeah.
Definitely 1.
Yeah, I wasn't going to move the resources. I was going to be brutal. I may change the table for resources because I think they're tending too low. So I think I've got the math wrong on the resources. I think they're overly emphasizing the negative outcome. And that's what I was saying about the samurai, right? Like my inclination was to actually represent exactly what happened to most samurai, which is they came out dirt poor and in a really bad place. And most of them went off and joined the army to, sort of find their lives again, as it were.
Unless I mess something up on life path, I'm currently on medicine 0. I don't have a skill in medicine.
Right, but you do have 4 skill points to spend, and
of course.
you spend those on medicine.
Or 3 of them at least.
3 of them at least, so that you're a good doctor, or you don't, and you can.
No, I want to be a good doctor.
Be a bad doctor, yeah.
You'd be a bad doctor. Although it would be hard to get your talents all work on medicine. So I just make that point. Mind you, I have 3 players in the current game, all of who've got inspiration-related archetypes. All of who could have taken a talent to be better at healing people. None of them did, which led to a classic line today. So it's like you get 3 clerics in your party and none of them took healing. Anyway, not a single one. But I'm the storm priest. So it was that moment. It was really hilarious. And you get to choose 1 additional piece of equipment. So you've already got some, and you can choose 1 of the below.
Okay, will do.
Okay. Entertainer.
Yes.
Now,
So
it has been suggested by Nicholas, by the way, that replace No with Kabuki, which I'm probably going to do because Kabuki was far more popular. But yes, professions.
I don't know the difference, but I've rolled that through D6, D3s, and apparently I'm a music theater, the no performer.
Ah, okay.
So that's
Kabuki performer.
Music theater, I guess.
Yeah, so that's why I've got to change it to Kabuki, because No is really. How would you describe it, Nicholas? It's like super formal, right? Like it's this massively
very
structured,
formal, and
it's an
very
incredibly
ancient. It's
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
very
It's not
dry opera compared to a musical.
Yeah, which is what Kabuki
even
is.
worse.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to change it to Kabuki, but that's okay. So you're a performer in a Kabuki. In a Kabuki troupe. Kabuki performers, by the way, are really famous, and the whole game is based around the art of the artist who did ukiyo-e, which is the sort of art that Hokusai is most famous for. So the Great Wave, that's a piece of ukiyo-e art. And actually, a lot of their art is about Kabuki performers. So they went and drew Kabuki performers. It's a really big part of the art style. So Kabuki was very popular, and Kabuki masters or experts were well regarded in the society. Okay. And what did you? I really know too much about this, and it was hard to put it all in. Trauma.
Trauma. Yeah, I was kidnapped and forced to play for a spirit court.
Okay, so the description on the side is explicitly that experience, and I'll just be completely transparent. If anyone has ever watched The Cat Returns by Studio Ghibli, that was literally the entire way I was thinking about it. But it's also the traditional story. So the traditional story is the musician gets taken away by the cat spirit court, plays at the spirit court, and gets a magical musical instrument as a result when they come back. So it's very similar to fairy story, particularly in Ireland around people like Tamlin, who might actually not be Irish, he might be Scottish. I think I've got that wrong. Either way, he goes away, he plays with the fairies, he disappears for a while, he comes back, he's got sort of semi-magical abilities as a result. So it's that sort of idea. And what was your dark secret?
The secret, I long to join a spirit court. Well, a good run here.
Nice.
So that fits well, I think.
I
think I was impressed by the spirit court after all.
Now, you do have unique talents, just to make the point. So this is these talents are all in this rule set because we made new talents.
I'm going to roll that one too and see.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm defensive.
Okay, so that gives you a bonus to dodging, basically. I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Martial arts, those are the general talents. Miko, Boshi, entertainer, dancer. Oh, it's dancer. Oh, we've got to fix that up. That's a typo. You're a skilled acrobat, which makes sense, or dancer in the case of kabuki. When you're attacked, you may add 2 dice to dodge an attack. So you basically get a bonus to getting out of the way of being hit. Okay. And then we had, that's the policeman right there, I'm pretty sure. Yep. Kietsetsu. There's a couple of different professions, all tied to whatever. So Matt was the policeman, weren't you, Matt?
Yeah, I've rolled and I've got spy.
Right.
Which I'm interested in because of my massive status difference. I'm status 1, but a policeman should be status 5. So I'm imagining I might be an undercover policeman, if there was such a thing.
Yes, there were undercover policemen everywhere. So there's all of these so all the political parties align to, like, I mean, probably for us Westerners, it's probably it's unfortunate, but it's probably the best example. So think of sort of Weimar Republic Germany, right? So you've got all these little political parties all jockeying for power and authority and all lining up with various nationalistic sort of gangs. And a lot of I probably shouldn't say Yakuza, but anyway, a lot of criminal gangs get their start working with political parties, and there's all these secret societies popping up, and so yeah, there's a whole heap of that sort of stuff going on. And of course, there's just been a rebellion, so spying on potential, rebels is a definite thing. Right, so you've got that. What was your motivation?
Bring law and order back to the country, which
Works
I think
perfectly.
is probably Tokugawa law and order. Things are a lot better under them, but
Oh, that's right. I
my
forgot you're
family
the
were
gun-
richer for a start.
That's right. I forgot you were the gun merchant, gunsmith. It's like, no, I want to bring back. So you've probably lined up with one of the you might be lined up with one of the ultra nationalist parties, because there's certainly a few of those. Interestingly, the major rebellion that occurs during this period, which is the Satsuma Rebellion, is all about the fact that Japan's not attacking enough people. It's not a rebellion about, we're doing too much. It's about we're not doing enough. We should be conquering more people. Okay, so trauma.
My trauma is I caught a tanuki, which is a raccoon
Yay!
shapeshifter in a theatre.
Yeah, love the Tanuki. Tanuki are awesome. Watch Pompoko, once again by Studio Ghibli, if you want to know the funny things about Tanuki, because they are funny. They have one very major, they're famous shapeshifters. They're like Kitsune and I should be able to remember their name. Anyway, they're shape-shifting otters as well. But they in particular, and sorry for the inappropriate language, can use their ball sack to do various magical things. And there's a whole list of magical things they can do with their ball sack.
That's talent, isn't it? That really is talent.
Can I
There's a
learn
whole
that talent? Whatever that talent
I aspire to that one. Frankly.
They're so cool. They're just so random. And it's such a great Japanese kind of feel to it. Anyway, I love them. So Tanuki are awesome. Okay. And what was your dark secret?
My dark secret, which fits in very well. So remember, my life event was I fell in love. I'm still a young policeman. I've stayed at that one event.
Yeah.
So I feel that I'm living with my lovely wife, and I do love her, but I am not faithful to my wife and frequently visit the red light districts of Tokyo.
Whoa.
And that was just randomly rolled. And it just seemed to fit so well. I can see myself desperately in love with my wife, but having sex with.
Are we gonna have a Bobby Rashid moment here, Matt?
Bobby Rashid was faithful to his wife all the way through. It was her.
She just fell out of love with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like I should know who Bobby Rashid is. But anyway.
We can explain another time, and maybe.
Yeah. All right. So, and then you've got your talents, once again, are all just core talents. So we didn't create any new ones. So they're just in the main rules.
I'm not quite sure which of those I'll choose, but I'll have a look through those.
And then you've got Yep.
This is slightly odd. It's got that usual pairing that they do for magnifying glass or lockpick, but then revolver, handcuffs, and badge. So does that mean I get revolver,
it's
handcuffs, and badge?
revolver, handcuffs, and badge. So you always get some form of authority.
So I think that is the thing I'll take, because I've got this, obviously undercover and my general life, I am 1, but when I flash my badge, I'm suddenly 5 status.
Yes. Okay, I like it. That works really well. Yeah, I'm actually really warming to that idea. Okay, no, that's going to work really well. Okay, and then there was the Miko that we don't have, and then there was the officer. Sorry, we've taken a bit of time, but we got there in the end. You could have been now you're ex-ETA. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could be hiding a lot. And I think I've overdone the status on officers, because actually that represents if you're like a senior military officer, not if you're just a soldier in the army, because actually they were treated like rubbish. So had an awful life. So we'll worry about that later. I'll fix that up. What profession did you choose?
I think I went for officer after all, even though maybe a soldier would have been more in line.
You're passing, man.
Yeah, my background. My background. My family put everything they gained from this shift into putting me into a military school.
Yeah,
and so that's where my drive to make my family proud and then I showed a knack for tactics and was made into an officer.
Perfect.
But I'm afraid of battle. I think that's
right.
The best dark secret from those.
That's going to be a dark secret. What was your trauma?
Yeah, seeing the Shikigami collecting the souls of my men on the battlefield.
Right. So basically a ghost spirit that was summoned by an evil sorcerer. Quite literally, going around collecting the souls of your soldiers. Just so you know, a Gashan Dokuru is a giant skeleton. It's in some of the ukiyo-e pictures from the March of the 1,000 Demons, the Night Parade of 1,000 Demons. Anyway, they're awful. And the centipede demon is exactly what it sounds like. Now, you can take rifle, pistol, compass. Whoops. There's a slight typo there. Just take one of those 3. There's another line, but it's disappeared because we didn't line it up properly. We have fixed that actually. Well, it's in the newest version.
It says map book or saber in the one I got. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. Yep. Great. Well, that'll be right. Yes.
And 2 of those I've already gotten from the life paths.
Okay.
Actually.
So which one did you want to take then?
So I got the rifle and I got the bayonet.
Okay. Yep. From being the huntering
because
cannon type. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Now, have we done everyone?
I think
Is everyone done?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Can I because there's moments of geekiness in all things. This is my geeky moment for this. So see this picture of the officer, and see this picture of the Boshi, who's an honor Geisha, which is actually literally a female samurai. They're from the same picture. They're from the same painting. So there was actually a battle between imperial soldiers and female samurai that occurs during one of the rebellions. And a guy painted it, and it's amazing. It's an amazing piece of art, but it's exactly the point of the game, right? Like, you've literally got traditionally trained female samurai charging around with their naganatas, and you've got imperial officers with their sabers and their pistols charging into fights, because the adoption of the katana as the formal military weapon of the Japanese army actually doesn't happen until the early 1900s. So they actually reject it for a period because, of course, they're getting rid of samurai. And so actually dragging around katanas was like, why would you do that? And it's only later that they readopt them. Anyway, I just make that point because I found it was really fun. Okay, so that's it. Characters made.
Yeah, cool.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
I want to play a game now, though.
Yes, so do I.
Just extend by 4 hours.
Yeah. So maybe not tonight because I do
You
literally
do
have to go
sleep and go to work.
Yeah.
no, I have to go. I have to work.
Yeah.
Don't have to
Oh, yeah.
sleep. I have to work because there's things to write. I came up with
Yes.
an idea to use the Kaggle Data Science open platform where you put out challenges for one of my programs. And I wrote an email to the guy saying, "What do you think?" And he went, "Yeah, that's a great idea. You should do that." Oh, why did I say that? Anyway, what was I thinking? Now all I've got to do is define the problem statement. Anyway, it's all about feeding cattle, by the way, in case anyone's interested. I'm doing something quite different to what I normally do, which is social welfare. I'm doing cattle feed.
Interesting.
All right, so I'll stop there. I'll stop sharing anyway. I'll stop sharing my my thing.
I'll do that for you.
Yeah, there we go. So that's it. So that's how the life path generator works. Later on tonight, the second of the two parts of the actual play will come out, which shows the second half. It has marginally better audio. To be honest, I will never be the guy who should be trusted to do stream management stuff because it turns out I do have limits, and that is definitely it. Which is hilarious because I use VTT all the time and I work in IT all day. But I can't use streaming technologies. What did you think? So that's my honest question, right? So what did you think?
Cool.
How did you find
Really
it?
cool.
Yeah,
It's a lot of
excellent.
fun.
Yeah.
I think my main comment is that your in-depth knowledge of the culture and the history just shines through all of it, and that adds a real layer of authenticity and brilliance to it. I think it was excellent. Really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sort of a bit worried that. So I'll be transparent, right? So my only concern is, so there's two concerns I had when I wrote it. My first concern was that it would become. So I tried very hard to stick with the Vaesen vibe of not going into detail of all the history in the book. So I haven't written endless reams of Meiji period history in the game explicitly because I don't think that's the point. Right, because if it was Meiji history, then you wouldn't be playing, Japanese Vaesen. You'd be playing some real history game. And as people who know me would know, I'm all about that. So that's cool, but that's not the point of this game. So I've tried to keep it a level above. And actually, myself and my co-author Brandon have really struggled with that. I think that's actually been really hard for us. And then, of course, the other concern I have is when I run the life path generator, I'm hurling in all of this additional
Extra colour.
commentary when I'm running it, and I'm not sure. I mean, it won't be. It just won't be. No matter how much I write the life path generator, it won't be. It's not going to carry all that because I've just explicitly said I don't want to write a history novel for the game. So it'll be really interesting to see. And one of the things, it's always the next step in playtest, and it's I think the most terrifying step without any doubt at all is to give this stuff to other people and say, can you now go and run a bunch of people through the life path generation and see how it works? Because that's going to be the hard bit, right? Because for me, that's going to be the bit where I go, oh my God, I'm going to die.
So I think, for me, your little exposition at the start, which gave us the context of the period, was just perfect. It was, it wasn't too long, it wasn't too short, but it really set the scene beautifully well. And then your cultural knowledge comes through. It feels, to somebody like me who knows very little about Japanese culture, it feels very authentic, and it adds a really nice flavor to the whole life path generation. Yeah, and as Matt said, I want to play this character now.
Yeah, so we'll have to organise to do it. I've just finished off the little actual play that we ran. Obviously, I'd have to choose a different yokai. I do have a really simple one that's quite short that I could run, which involves girl. It's just actually I probably need to choose a different topic because I seem to be centering on village girls.
Going missing.
One of the which is really unfortunate. Well, one of the reasons why, just to explain, is the industry of Japan, particularly in the later half of the Meiji period, is actually powered by village daughters. So all of these factories have all these girls coming down from the mountains being recruited by yakuza and merchants. And it's actually, I mean, it's awful, right? Like it's not a great story, right? Because they're sold these ideas they're going to get these great jobs in the city. It's the same story that we hear even today, right? They're told, come down from the rural north and you'll have these great jobs in the city. They get to the city and suddenly they find themselves basically in penury and slavery in effect. And so they live in these industrial complexes and never get out. It's really, it's an awful period. And I made it the centerpiece of the actual play. That component, I've made the centerpiece of the actual play for that reason, because it's actually humans are way worse than monsters, right? And that's the point of that story.
That's one of the themes, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I really think that works. So I do have another one. So yes, I definitely want to run more people through it because it's good fun. It's actually great fun. I mean, today was awesome. So yeah, all right. Well, let's find some time. I know everyone is busy. Which is always the hard thing. And obviously I'm in literally the opposite time zone to you guys. I think if I lived in New Zealand, I'd literally be opposite, but I'm pretty close. Yeah. So I'd be very keen to play though. I mean, GM, I'd be very keen to GM. So maybe we can try and set it up for like a fortnight or something like that, depending on availability. Does that sound acceptable?
That sounds great.
Absolutely.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
We've got some comments that I'm just feeding through from YouTube. And just remind us, Thomas, you're planning on putting this on the Free League Workshop when it's done? And is that going to be this sort of extension rulebook plus one or two scenarios all in the same volume?
Yep. So the plan is to put out 2 short scenarios. Like I'm no great shakes when it comes to writing scenarios. I think that's pretty clear. I can run a reasonably decent game, but I'm not great. And I know that because I've read your stuff and I can compare. I'm an adult that way. But I'm pretty good at this bit. This bit I'm good at. So we're going to write 2 short scenarios, one based on the actual play, which involves a very classic Japanese demon, yokai demon, and the second one, which will be much more lighthearted and treats with one of my personal favorites, who I might have already mentioned in passing as we went through the thing. Because well, no, not the otter.
The spider lady.
Yes, the spider lady definitely is. Well, she's the serious one. No. I won't tell you because it'll ruin it. But the second one is much more lighthearted. The second one is much more lighthearted because they're just worthy of lightheartedness. And I think the other reason is because that's the balance that the Japanese mythology gives, right? Like the thing about Japanese stories in general, and I think it's going to sound really philosophical for a second, but it's actually really important to the way the game plays. They don't have a religion that suppressed it. They don't have a religion that has dominated the landscape for 2,000 years and said, this is bad, this is wrong, this is evil, and so forced it into the dark and shadowy corners of their society. This is an inherent part of their society, and it's an accepted part of their society. So they've got a much more, I mean, yes, there's horrible monsters, but actually there's a lot of lighthearted stuff that's just silly stories, and it's completely cool. And they're not demons and they're not monsters. They're just silly creatures that sometimes you deal with. And I think that's a really important part of the game because maybe not everything has to be quite so dark. So yes, 2 short stories, a whole piece on Mythic Japan, a little piece on the history of Japan. I haven't changed the magic system, kept it completely as per the rules for exactly the reason I didn't want to reinvent anything, and it was way too much like work. And I'm writing now a whole stack of little snippets which sort of explain key things, but I'm going to put them almost like in an appendix, so they're not in the middle of the book and getting in the way. But if you wanted to understand, for instance, my personal favorite at the moment, which is the Great Promulgation Campaign, literally its name, which is where the priests will get reordered, then there'll be a piece that talks in a paragraph about what the Great Promulgation Campaign was. So you can set a game against that because it's one of those things that changes the way the society works, and it changes how priests and villagers are interacting with their local spirits because it fundamentally realigns how the shrines work. And so that's something that would annoy a yokai to no end. Anyway, I've wrapped it on.
We will put your actual play that you've done just finished earlier today is on your channel. We'll put a link to that if you send it to me in the show
I'll do
notes
that.
for this one, so people can.
Brilliant.
Excellent. I want to see that.
Yeah.
The second one is
cool.
the audio is way better on the second one than the first one. I'll just say that out now.
Okay.
I'm sorry I criticised your audio on the first.
No, the audio was awful. It was terrible. But there's a lot more laughter in the second one, which is weird because it's super dark in points, but there's a lot of laughter. Anyway,
a deal to feed Vaesen with
people. It's a great story. Anyway,
Brilliant.
Okay, guys, we can stop the stream, and I guess I can let you guys go and have a Sunday.
Let's
Thank
say
you,
goodbye
Thomas.
to
Thanks.
Thank
the
you.
handle goes
Bye.